Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
Hello, and welcome to episode 27 of the GreggHoush Show with the sometimes wonderful Kayla Avery.
Oh, you said it wrong. It's always wonderful.
And Mac.
It's the Mac Daddy. He's back in Mac. He's Return of the Mac. He's the Mac cheesiest. He's Mac-tastic.
I'm really
He's the
sorry,
Mac
Mac.
Daddy.
I'm sorry, man. That's rough.
And over there, apologizing for our man Mac, that is Derek.
D-Dog.
Here. Thank you very much.
Derek has shown up.
Yep.
The D-Money.
Mhm.
It's D-Smoothie and Shifty.
Haven't gotten smoothie or shifty yet. Life is complete, Schwifty 5.
All right, there we go. We are going to be swifty with it here.
I think that should be the episode title.
I mean, are we up to that level where we can use that? I don't think we are.
I think we're being pretty swifty at 27. We're like we are
going to survive 27, unlike a lot of other people.
Yeah, like we won't be down with the greats.
Yeah.
But we're gonna keep going on.
I mean, for all I know, I get hit by a bus tomorrow. Then we can actually claim that we died at 27.
You call me.
Like while I'm lying there dying, I call you?
Absolutely. The first phone call, you call me.
I'm going to have to put you on my list of favorites.
Yes. I put me as your emergency dial just in case your phone is locked.
I have a wife and she might get angry about that.
No, but like I need the money. So I need you to call me first.
If I survive.
Yeah.
I see.
Or
you want the referral for the lawyer.
Commissions.
Yes. Although would my wife really care if I put you as my emergency? I don't know on that one.
She's gonna like she'll like the results. Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me here. It's gonna be huge.
Yes.
Speaking of huge.
Not gonna go there, but let's open this one up because a lot more fun stuff happened this week, and by fun I still mean horrible.
Well, I mean, I think this past weekend there was a little bit of a silver lining.
And that is
over 120 NFL players kneeled during the national anthem on Sunday and Monday. So and 9 were on the season opener. So as I think that's a good.
Three entire teams didn't come out for it.
Well, yeah,
they just stayed and said we're not taking part at all.
Yeah,
like they won up to everyone on a knee, I guess. I don't
nearly
is that what that was?
Nearly 20 teams either had at least some players sitting or kneeling or didn't have people come out.
So here we are with major owners of sports teams out there kneeling and or arm locking with their people. And
I mean, it should be noted that like 0 teams have signed Colin Kaepernick still. So like a little bit showboating. But I mean, I do think that this is now giving a bigger voice to some people that maybe felt a little nervous or afraid to start protesting like with it, even though they felt like they wanted to be part of it.
So sure, it's making it where more people can get involved, but the conversation has been more about Trump's interaction and whether or not they should protest, and much less about Kaepernick's original reason for what he did and the symbolism that he was evoking by doing it. He was outright copying Martin Luther King in a very specific act.
Well, actually, no. The reason why he's kneeling, and he didn't. It's not.
I'm not saying that was his reason. I'm saying that's what he did.
No, so actually the reason the kneel started, right, because he was sitting first, and another, I think a former NFL player and veteran approached him and said, hey, I understand what you're trying to do, but I think if you kneeled, it will be stronger.
It seems kind of disrespectful to just stay sitting.
Well, it wasn't so much the disrespect, but he said that like, when as a soldier on the field, if someone gets hurt, we kneel in respect. So he said, I think your message will be delivered in a stronger way if you do it this way. And Kaepernick agreed and said, I hear what you're saying. And yeah, I think this is a good compromise because I don't want to disrespect veterans. That's not the point. And I think you're right. And then that's when he started kneeling.
Yep.
So it was a combination.
There was good reasoning.
Yeah. And the Martin Luther King thing is that it came up, there was a Think Progress that showed him kneeling at a protest and he was leading in prayer. So like there is a correlation that like civil rights activists have, like kneeling
This
is
has been done before.
Yeah, like it's been a powerful tactic and it's a strong presence and it's strong symbolism. And,
But now, we've got take a knee as a hashtag, and it feels like it's all kind of getting whitewashed at this point. It's more about whether they should protest or not, and less about
What the protest is.
let's just say it, the police murders of innocent blacks.
Well, yeah. I mean,
like,
anything to do with Trump is not going to take the original, and like, and from the start, it's been trying to be whitewashed as this like disrespect of the flag, blah blah blah.
Yeah, the right has been playing it off that way.
Blackwashing, like
Well, the white right is started saying that whole like it's being disrespectful to the anthem and the flag.
I mean, I was going for like the inverse of whitewashing, but then I thought about the racial connotations of the right doing it and figured it seemed appropriate to call them trying to demonize it blackwashing.
One of my favorite things this week that I saw in relation to this is someone saying that quote, "I would have never believed that the left got the NFL in the divorce of the American right and left."
I saw someone very similar commenting something to the effect of, this is a very strange moment in history because for once, pro athletes have all like ended up in the spotlight at once for something, and it was actually they were on the right side.
It's a miracle.
Right? Like when do pro athletes ever end up in the news and it turns out, oh, by the way, these are all the good guys.
Right?
So then
Especially
we end up,
Roger Goodell.
Usually it's like spouse abuse.
well, we end up with the opposite in another sport, although it kind of goes weird. So we end up with NASCAR with two long-term members of NASCAR, car owners at this point, probably the greatest driver ever to drive in the sport, Richard Petty. They both came out, him and Richard Childress, very against the kneeling and against the protest. And
Right. The sport that has Confederate flags constantly at their events.
a lot of the fans, yeah. So, but
Is
but
against
wait for it.
kneeling?
But wait for it. So the interesting thing to note here is that people like Petty and people like Childress, they've been around since basically the beginning, either themselves or their family. They were like second generation if they weren't first. Since this really started as a bunch of moonshiners, literally modifying cars to go faster, then realizing they should race them. And, all down in the deep South where Confederate flags and the love of the former Confederacy was still relatively large, larger than even, today. And so like this is what they grew up with. So they're just those people. And you can't write off their racism, their bigotry or anything else to that. But you can literally say, we know where it comes from and why they're still around as well.
Greg, if they really look at the two brands that are doing this most aggressively, it's the NFL and NASCAR, right?
Well, NASCAR
Yeah, either
only
side.
came out against against it because of Trump and this weekend. Like, I mean, NASCAR didn't give a shit.
Well, therein lies
earlier.
the problem, though. It's brands that are willing to, and I guess the question is maybe ethics as well as is it good business or not for major brands to tie themselves to nationalism and to a country? I mean, it sure seems like at least a good mid to long term bet.
Well,
if you
that's been a thing. So before the NFL, before a couple years ago, like within the last 2 years, the NFL was considered a nonprofit and actually took money from.
Well, it still is a nonprofit.
No,
It
well,
hasn't
they
lost
gave-
nonprofit
they-
status.
They gave up their
What?
status.
NFL's not anymore.
Yeah, they gave up their status in the last 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Cool.
recent.
Because it came out that they were a nonprofit,
Yeah.
and they were also taking tens of millions of dollars from the U.S. government so they can promote the military as an advertisement.
They were sick- they
it
were
was
sick of people
And
looking
listed.
at the
just
inside,
for
too.
people to understand why they were a nonprofit in the first place, we originally had two nearly nationwide leagues, the AFL and the NFL. And in the 60s, they merged into one league called the NFL. And when they did it, they would have been a monopoly under the various monopoly laws we had in place. So the only way they could pull it off was with some interesting exceptions and being a nonprofit. And so they actually took the nonprofit status so they could merge without being a monopoly.
So,
which they also haven't needed in 20 plus years because of the amount of money they've made.
also they don't really care if they're a nonprofit or not because it doesn't actually affect them because the NFL doesn't deal with like 99% of the money. That's the
it's the
individual
teams.
franchises.
Yeah.
So back to should it be a thing that we actually get to consider in each country for their own if you're allowed to even tie sports teams to nationalism or, breakfast cereals to national?
Yeah, like I mean, the
does it
idea
need to
of
be a
like
thing? It
playing the
just
national
seems-
anthem before every sports game is ridiculous, and
Well, if you look at the origin of the practice, it was in international competitions where, the two countries would play and beforehand they'd play their national anthems because they were respecting
Yeah,
both countries.
and then-
But then it came to
feels
the
like we're-
US as a thing where it was just like every sports event.
well, so it actually started a little.
Yeah, it didn't initially come
It
over that
started
way.
in baseball during I think it was World War II, and they played it like I think they played it during the playoffs, the World Series playoffs. It was when I think the Cubs and the Red Sox were in it. So we might even going further back than the World War II. And I guess the first time they played it, it was just like a one-off. Like they decided to, I don't know, like it was someone's idea, and apparently it was a big hit. People just enjoyed it, and so they're like, "Hey, let's do it again during the next one." And then it was like, and then they like started playing it at like the World Series, and then it started playing at the playoffs in the World Series, and then it was some of the games before the playoffs, and then it just became every game. But like, it was never a thing where like it was like this patriotism thing. It was just like, it's a cute little routine, kind of like it lets the crowd know that the game's about to start. Grab your last beer, and then for the football, for the NFL specifically, they didn't start standing on the field during the anthem until like 2009.
Yeah, they weren't even on the field for the anthem.
Am I the only one that feels like that's just really contrived and they're just indoctrinating people? Am I the only one that's cynical enough to feel that way? That
That was
No,
it.
there's
That
a
was
lot of people that
intentional.
feel that way. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
That was
the
actually
NFL was
intentional on their
taking
part.
money from the U.S. government as an advertisement.
Right,
like,
right,
so,
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the
Came out,
whole,
yeah.
Expressly the
In
thing
fact,
around 2009.
Every major sporting, league in the United States did, I believe. That came out.
but
Was it the
it-
NSA?
Yeah, and you
No,
see
it
all
was
the
all-
ads
it was all
for
an
the U.S. Army and everything else
Yeah,
during
so
all the sporting
Absolutely.
it was
events.
all considered all
and
that
there's
money.
the U.S. Army car now in NASCAR.
Yeah,
And
so it's all
National
considered
Guard car,
advertisement.
too.
So yeah, it is nationalism, and my favorite thing is like when you see people like yelling online, being like, they would have been shot if they were in another country. And it's like that's actually very pro kneeling. That's
Yeah.
a very
like-
pro kneeling argument.
Yeah.
Also, which countries are you talking about? Because like all the countries I could name where you might want to compare the U.S. to, no one was getting shot.
No.
In
but
fact,
they're comparing them
they
to
could
like
have literally been holding guns and no one would have gotten shot. The police would have just really freaked out because no one ever holds guns there.
Yeah.
yeah, and like the only countries that would quote unquote like shoot someone for kneeling during a national anthem are like North Korea. I don't know if that's a country we
Yeah,
want to be
exactly,
comparing ourselves.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like it's a very pro kneeling argument where
Yeah.
you're saying like, yeah, everyone should be kneeling because we can.
One of the interesting things that came out of the NASCAR side of this was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s response to the other people in NASCAR.
That was interesting.
And it's interesting to me because the fans every year in NASCAR vote on their favorite driver of the season, and he won something like a decade straight. It was like 11 years, like the
That was
last.
probably the only name that the
Probably
drunks
like
could
13
remember.
out of the last 11 years, he's won driver of the year. And whether he's got to win that season or not, no one cares. That's Dale Earnhardt Jr. We
Yeah.
love that guy.
And before it was
And-
Dale Earnhardt Jr., it was Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Senior.
that won every
Yeah.
time.
And so
Everyone's like, I know that name. I like him.
So he's this guy who the entire fan base just thinks of as the quintessential NASCAR driver. He is the one they vote as their favorite every year. And he's the one who came out and said, I want to make it clear that the beliefs of these two people who everyone is now talking about, Richard Childress and Richard Petty, are not mine. And that I want to make it clear that they are not speaking for me. And his statement was, I think, the right statement in that he said, I will always stand. It's what I do. It's how I feel. I need to act during that. But everyone in this country has the right to make that choice. That's what makes this country great. And no one should fear for their job simply because they are protesting. And, any other driver says that, and it's like, some driver in NASCAR doesn't like something one of the owners said. But the fact that the fan favorite, who everyone seems to look up to as a fan, is the one who came out, like, I think that was a really bold statement for him to make.
It was. It definitely is not.
He's also retiring this year, so like he's basically driving his last couple of races, then he's out. So maybe it's not.
I mean, you're
but
not
I think he's
going
to remain in the sport.
Yeah, it's not like you're gonna have that name and like leave the sport and like never be part of
or
that
get
culture
disinvited
anymore.
from a race.
But I mean, like also he's just not gonna leave like that culture. Like
Right.
he's gonna still be
He's
around
gonna be an
all those
announcer or
people.
something
Right,
at
right.
least, if not car
or
owner
like,
or
you know, he'll get ad deals, stuff like that.
So
Yeah.
I found it really honestly cool of him specifically for coming out and being the one who spoke up on the side of the drivers, because a lot of the drivers are actually relatively progressive people in comparison to what they used to be. And what they used to be is people like Richard Petty. So
I mean, I just think it's so.
I guess it's not too hard to be more progressive than Richard
low
Petty.
bar.
No, but it's just such a weird like time where like people are feeling like such a weird sexual attraction to like the national anthem and like the flag, where like they think that like anything other than like this one movement and act is like going like it's like it's like you're almost like pissing on it. It's like, why do you care?
Well, I've
It's like
heard
this
a lot.
hyper-vigilant defense, though, of the United States. It's the anti-terrorist thing. It's if we don't stick together this tight, then things might fall apart and crumble if we let a guy kiss a guy type of thing. You know?
Well,
It's
what
so
I've been
fragile
thinking
to them.
about a lot lately is this idea that globalization is taking place a lot more, and this other really interesting thing, is when we were doing a lot of the Arab Spring stuff, and a lot of the online hacktivists were involved in doing things like shutting down, the country of Tunisia's radio networks and things like that to help the protesters on the ground. It was weird because people were asking, why are you helping some other country? Why does that matter? And it's like, what do borders matter? Who gives a, like, really? Those are just humans on the same planet as me. And I feel that a lot of youth, and specifically like millennials and down, kind of have a similar sentiment where their love of specific country or care of borders is a lot less than, let's say, what it was 50 years ago in this country. And so it might be some kind of a natural response to everyone seeing less and less care or worry about borders or national identity. And so the side who does care is now pushing back even stronger against that idea that borders don't matter.
Like Fox News has also spent the last decade tying everything to the troops, and if you disagree with this, then that means you're against the troops, and you disrespect veterans, and they all the veterans ever that have ever existed, and like they died for your rights, and if you don't stand and like salute the flag and refuse to blink, you're pissing on their graves. Like they've spent and they've been drilling this in, and it's like, no,
It's
what's
just never
disrespect?
veterans saying that either.
Yeah,
it's just never ever
and like I'm
veterans
sure
saying
some
that.
veterans feel that way, and
course
sure,
some
you
do.
can feel that way, and you can stand, you can sit. I don't give a shit.
It's really hard, honestly, if you really call veterans out and get them to do that, because the first thing that comes to their minds is the price that gets paid for these types of things, for that type of entitledness. And when it's your brother or your sister's arm and a leg or somebody's lives, and it's a real thing for them. It's not a game. It's not politicking. If you really ask a veteran, I challenge anybody out there to do it who's listening, ask them really how they feel about war, or really how they feel about peace, and just look them in the eye and wait for an answer. It'll be an emotional one for sure, whatever it is. I have a hard time finding anybody I know who has served that was in, people I served with in the Marine Corps, people who have served in wars more recently over there. The things they see, the scars it leaves, it's hard for you to get them to say anything but that we should be a lot less involved in what's going on over there. And I think that goes back to, the GOP, they became so the love children of veterans in this country and made it all about that, God and country. Well, it's kind of backfiring now, because you have, these veterans coming back, and, they've been empowered by some great nonprofits, and there's a lot out there that have the idea about giving them a voice, giving them the
Not
opportunity.
just that, but it's like we're in indefinite war. We have the largest demographic of veterans and disabled veterans than we've ever had, and we also tried to get rid of Medicaid this week. Half of all of veterans that from the the start of the war in 2002 depend on Medicaid. So if we want to talk about disrespecting veterans, it's the Republicans who are trying to get rid of Medicaid.
Systemic issues that have happened with the VA, and just the Republicans have repeatedly sought to, frankly, undermine the VA so that it can fail, so they can talk about how the VA is failing, so they can privatize it.
Yeah, it's an empty defense. it's a vapid one, and it's a shallow one too, because you're exploiting like actual human lives that have suffered and have put their lives on the line for, for what a lot of them sometimes don't even know what they're fighting for over there. And it's just exploitation, and it's disgusting exploitation. And the fact that Kaepernick started with this saying, I need to feel like he courageously said, I'm going to use my position because I know a lot of people do not have this opportunity, and I need to speak up because I can't not. And so it's like the fact that they were able to bastardize and perverse that. And he's articulated very cleanly what his stance is from the beginning.
From the beginning, he did an outstanding job.
He was like, "This has nothing to do with veterans. This has nothing to do with the country. This is everything."
Tough spot so early too. He really did.
Yeah. And
everything to do with systematic racism.
Exactly, it's 100% racism, and so it's just and it's disgusting that we've the Fox News right propaganda machine has been able to tie this to veterans at their expense.
Yeah, veterans are getting more and more upset these days with other people using their name and their cause, their sacrifice, veterans' sacrifices for their own gain. And that's really why, a lot of folks I've talked to just in the last 6 months even are talking about mobilizing and wanting to have their own voice. You see more Twitter accounts going up just by individual veterans who are trying to get anybody they can together to listen, trend on hashtags, and get people to hear their own version and not, a politician's leveraged version.
I think it was the Vets Vote account, Twitter account, got blocked by Trump because and there's a bunch of veteran organizations that have been blocked by Trump.
So for the next few weekends, we're gonna get to keep watching, I'm sure, if not more, of this type of a protest, and we'll see if other sports join in.
I hope that there's a team that just really bones up and signs Kaepernick. He doesn't deserve to be unemployed for taking a stand. He's still working. He's training every day. I'm not saying he's the greatest quarterback.
A lot of teams need a strong backup.
He's a good quarterback. He's got a good career record. He's obviously he's had some bad games like everybody, but he's working his butt off training. So
there are many quarterbacks he has better numbers than.
He's got a better record than a lot of people that have jobs. So he deserves to be on a team. And
there are a bunch of 0-3 teams who might be at least 1-2.
Yeah. So he.
But yeah,
so you have a moral leader out there, though,
So we'll keep watching, and I just think this is going to continue to get whitewashed and drawn farther away from the point. We'll see what happens this weekend. That's coming up a couple days. Let's move on. Let's talk about this glorious tax plan, and by that I mean the wonderful gift to the rich that Trump and team have come up with.
Glorious, very much in the sense of a glory.
Yes, exactly.
Got to pay back campaign contributions, though.
So there is a tax plan, sort of, kind of.
They say there's a tax plan. They've used those words.
There's a lot to get worked out still and negotiated, but there's some starting points.
You say that, but I've looked through this tax plan in a fair bit of detail at this point. And quite frankly, if you just went, if I were going to bullshit what the Republicans would throw out as a tax plan, what would my bullet points be? And you just write those down. You just wrote their plan.
Yeah, it's pretty much
what they've done.
Incredibly predictable.
So they did their homework late. That's fine.
Yeah. Cool. Trump is going to come out and say that he never knew how hard this was.
Yes.
No one could have predicted.
No one could have predicted.
Yes.
So this plan, I mean, in a nutshell, does some pretty bad things. It
does a lot of great things for the middle class. He said so.
Yeah, it's 20% corporate tax rate.
It's that you can trust anything he says.
Yeah, believe him. That's what he keeps saying.
Yeah, right?
Anyone will tell you.
So here's the thing. It does the 20% corporate tax rate. Okay. It doesn't get to the 15 like he wanted, but in all honesty, this is a starting point anyways, because negotiations have to happen before a tax plan goes through, because you're not getting that through with 50. It's not going to happen. So they're going to need to negotiate here. So that 20% is probably going to pop up to, 25, 28. It's just not going to be the 35.
All that much.
And then you've got the 25% rate for pass-through businesses.
Which is, to be noted, About 70 to 80% of all of Trump's businesses are considered
Yes.
pass-through businesses.
Although it also a fair amount of small business is actually passed through business. So I mean,
it's not going to help.
No, it's just not going to
ones.
help them.
I mean,
But if
there's
you're a
very,
stockbroker, boy, you're
Yeah.
going to love it.
or if you're a shell entity.
So here's the
most
interesting stuff,
stockbrokers
for the people who want to actually try and believe Trump when he says this is for the middle class and not the rich. Here's where he's lying.
Well, he's been lying since day
Everywhere.
one.
Everywhere.
The estate tax goes bye-bye. So no more estate tax.
There's no such thing as an estate tax. It's called the death tax.
Yeah. So the
Which is
estate
weird
tax going
because
away
they call it-
only is a benefit for people who make who would be passing on more than 5.49 million. So no one in the lower to even upper middle class are dealing with $5.5 million.
Even
The only people getting rid of that estate tax helps are the wealthy. And so that's piece one. I mean, piece two really is the just tax cut for the rich. Literally, the top tax rate in the United States is 39.6%, and they want to lower it to 35%. The 39.6% tax rate only applies to income above $418,400 for singles and $470,700 for married couples. So only people above that $418,000 are getting hit with this tax rate. So again, no one in the middle class is getting hit with this tax rate.
That's less. That's literally not even all of the people in the top 1%.
Right. So this tax break right here is only for the rich. It does nothing for the middle class.
Speaking of only for the rich and not for the middle class, also the alternative minimum tax going away.
AMT is gone.
Which is the one reason why we know Trump paid any taxes in 2005?
Whatever the year that one page. of
that
his
one
was
page that leaked, which was the same year that he got married to Melania, and that he paid an alternative
30
minimum.
million.
Yeah, it was something like 25 or something like that. So it's like literally the only tax that he paid that we know of in the last 20 years
Is the AMT.
Is the AMT that he wants to get rid of.
And very specifically, the AMT limits how much you can deduct from your income so that you can't just be like making $100 million and writing off all of that and claiming that you didn't make any net income. The AMT is specifically to prevent people from doing that. That's what it does.
And so that is again another one for rich people. And let's continue on the
My
this is only for rich people.
favorite part of the new tax plan is the tax-free foreign money profits for U.S. corporations.
Oh yeah.
So like
Indeed.
any corporation that is set up organized in America but makes profits overseas,
Like Apple.
and like all of them, all of that profit is tax-free. Oh, funny enough, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin conveniently forgot he had $200 million in assets in the Cayman Islands and did not disclose that during his confirmation
He's
hearing.
not a financial guy. He doesn't pay attention to that.
Just to note how easy that is to abuse. What corporations often do are things like they take their intellectual properties developed in the United States, sold in the United States and worldwide. They assign their intellectual property to an overseas holding company in, for example, Ireland, which doesn't have corporate tax anywhere close to basically anyone else's. And then they can claim all of their income from that intellectual property as revenue for that subsidiary, which is not located in the United States, and therefore they'd pay no tax. So all of that revenue that, say, Microsoft earns off of Windows, well, despite the fact that was all work done in the United, well, not all of it, but huge amounts of it were work done in the United States, developed in the United States under U.S. intellectual property law, that intellectual property is now being held in Ireland, and therefore all revenue associated with it is not American revenue, and therefore no tax.
Also, remember Carrier? Remember the big
yeah.
Carrier company that was about to shut down a plant and set up in Mexico so that sell ACs back in America? Well, guess what? Carrier can now do that, and it would be tax-free.
And
of course, Carrier was already planning to do that. So
here's
anyway.
the second half of that, where this tax plan makes it so much better for them, because one of the problems these companies run into is all of that money now exists offshore, and it is expensive for them to bring it back to America in any legal way that
They'd have
is
to
reported.
pay taxes on it.
They have to pay taxes when they bring it back. So here we go with the one-time repatriation tax, where
Which is not reparations like I originally read it.
no, repatriation. This will mean that they can bring back as much money as they want at only a 10% rate. It'll kind of be averaged out.
A one-time.
A one-time, which means
Although
someone like
that's-
Apple, who has $300 billion offshore, can bring it back to the U.S. and pay only 10% to bring that money back and use it here. Now, the reason they do stuff like this, they say, is so those companies can then invest that money in local production, in more jobs, in, better quality stuff. And instead, what actually happens is that money comes back now at such a cheap rate that they can pay it all out as dividends to the shareholders. So again, the only people that actually benefit from something like that are the shareholders who are getting dividends off of that money being brought back. And I'll tell you, in this country, according to our own SEC, less than 15% of the citizens of America actually have any shares in any company.
Yeah.
Less than 5% of those people actually earn dividends. So there is
I earn dividends.
So there
it's
is
like
a
10 cents a year,
very
guys.
small amount of people who happen to already be rich earning money off of this. So again, another handout to the rich.
And this isn't hypothetical. It's because when they say one-time repatriation tax, that's kind of a lie, because you see, we did this about 13 years ago. And what happened was, we know that money went to dividends for stockholders, repurchasing stock, and executive compensation and things like that. We've tried it. We saw it didn't work to the way they said, and now they're proposing doing it again anyway.
Well, like trickle-down economics. It
Yes.
works, right?
They have a history of doing
Well,
this sort
if
of thing,
at first you
they?
don't succeed, keep doing it until you ruin the country.
Right.
So-
If at first you
Trickle-down
don't
economics.
succeed,
So
keep doing exactly the same thing forever.
So in
Until
another
you die.
attack on Obamacare is included in this tax plan, where the Obamacare investment tax of 3.8% surcharge on investment income goes away. And of course, it was only applied to people earning more than $200,000 individually or $250,000 as a married couple. So again, only people making some pretty good money were getting this small tax to help cover some of the costs of Obamacare. And this tax plan takes that right away.
Meanwhile, two things it doesn't affect at all: capital gains tax rates, the way that the rich make most of their money, and the carried interest loophole for capital gains tax rates, another way that the rich benefit that basically no one else gets to use at all.
In the swamp, baby.
So, and lastly, but definitely not least, the SALT deduction. The state and local tax deduction is being removed with this tax plan. So this is
This actually will affect the middle class.
Yeah.
this will specifically
Just not
negatively affect the middle class and majority affect the middle class in democratic areas. Although
it does affect a lot of Republican areas
does,
as well. It is one of those, like, why would you even propose something that's obviously going to be this politically hard to get through? Like, no one likes
So what this does means is you cannot deduct your state and local taxes that you've paid when you're doing your federal taxes.
So if you happen to live in a area where, say, there's high property values and you have to pay your property taxes, well, guess what you aren't deducting from your tax?
and every
taxable
other
income
tax you
anymore.
could possibly
Right.
imagine, say here in Massachusetts, where we get taxed for walking down the street.
Well, I mean,
Oh, Massachusetts, we actually don't pay a particularly high rate overall.
No, we just pay for 500 other things that I've never seen be forced on me in any other state I've lived in.
yeah, but then you got other
I
states.
didn't even know excise tax was a thing until I moved here. I was confused when they sent me that bill. Like, what are you talking about?
I just think it's
And I've lived in many other states.
I just think it's funny that, for example, Texas is almost exactly equally taxed with Massachusetts on average, but
Right.
they have like 3 taxes that do all of it, whereas Massachusetts taxes
instead
like
of-
100 little
yeah.
things that
Well, and
most
then New
of
Hampshire,
never
you
even
have
see.
like you don't have
Sales tax.
sales tax,
Right.
but you have something called the Lakeview tax.
Yeah. So what I find interesting about this is I feel that removing the salt tax is not only or the salt deduction is not only an attack on the middle class, but it is also a very directed attack on specific Democratic congressional
It's a tax on the poor.
districts.
I mean,
Well, so 21 of the top 25 congressional districts by use of the salt deduction are represented by Democrats. 21 of 25.
I don't remember what the actual listing of districts was, but I would bet money that that's like a bunch of districts in Northern Virginia, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, and Connecticut primarily.
They do
and
not
California.
like the elites up here and the Californians.
States with high per capita income and high property values, and lots of
where the salt deduction really means something
what's the
to the
M.
middle
Night
class.
Shyamalan twist on those districts, though?
Ah, yes.
Well, I think the twist there is that of the 136 congressional districts with an above average salt deduction, over 50 of them are represented by Republicans.
So they are not going to be happy. So I think this one actually gets stricken.
They'd be voting for against their own taxes.
Yeah, so I think in the end, this one right here, this is going to be one of the ones that gets negotiated out of the bill.
That seems like it's going away.
Well, first of all, they need to put something
through.
on actual paper for them to start negotiating.
True.
Like right now, this plan is basically like someone who is using Microsoft Paint somehow because they got rid of it and bullet pointed their Republican wet dream. Ejaculated somehow words.
Look, I printed out the notes. The plan is on paper.
So the don't get lost in the math here, but the standard deduction is getting doubled.
Except for one little
Except for the
detail.
math.
Okay, so I know you said don't get lost in math, but 2 + 2 is 7, right?
According to Trump.
Well,
that makes sense now. So now the math works.
No, see, it's strictly true that the standard deduction would get doubled. There's just the minor issue that part of the reason it's getting doubled is that the personal exemption, which is almost the same magnitude as the standard deduction, goes away entirely. So the actual effective increase for best case scenario is only around a 15% increase in the standard deduction. And depending on your circumstances, it's actually be a lot less than that.
Yeah.
So okay, here's my one thing that kind of grinds my gears a little bit when Democrats or quote unquote liberal news media starts talking taxes, right? Now our tax policy is insanely complicated for no reason. I get that. But
that's how you get the loopholes.
Yeah, but the thing is no one ever really talks about the fact that it's we could really simplify this for people in a better way by saying, okay, the reason why corporations need to spend more in taxes is because corporations actually use more services. They drive more, they're on the roads more, they use the courts more, they use trash pickups more, recycling, they use services,
Law enforcement.
Yeah, law enforcement, the military, they use commodities more than citizens. So when people start talking corporate, we need to cut the corporate tax, we need this, it's corporations now are not paying federal income. Majority of corporations, the big corporations, are not paying federal income taxes, but yet they're using federal properties and federal courts and federal judges and federal
all of it,
and
roads,
all this, and not just the
water
directly
supplies,
federal, but all the state programs that get subsidized by the federal government.
Yeah, so it's no one. We can simplify this tax talk, so to address those issues by just outrightly saying, okay, let's look at Halliburton. Okay, what's Halliburton paying in federal income taxes? Probably nothing. What is Halliburton using from the federal government on a daily? How much are they using their water? back to the NFL, we have stadiums that don't pay a water bill.
Yep.
And how much fucking water are they using to so it's such an inane and just insidious topic because people try to make it so
specifically
complicated.
About the corporations, all those corporations that are hurting so much under the current tax code. Over the last 30 years, those corporations have amassed a stockpile of cash larger than any era, even adjusted for inflation, in the history of the world. U.S. corporations currently are sitting on just over $2 trillion in actual liquid cash right now. They do not need a tax break. They need to be spending some of that on taxes.
They need to be
Oh, and
giving
by
it-
the way, over that same period, the average CEO's pay as a multiple of the average worker has increased from like, what is it, like 50 times to like 300 times?
I think the smallest it's ever been was 30% in the 70s. I think that was the smallest gap.
Yeah.
And it's like gone up past 800%.
It's
It,
insane.
well, it hit the CEO average worker was 100 times back about almost 10 years ago now. So
Yeah, like
these companies need to get taxed a lot more. The CEO pay, I think, honestly needs to be regulated at this point. The way they're doing it, the golden parachutes need to go away. I mean, just as a good example, the CEO of Equifax retires and gets $18 million after what he did. Yeah, not
and like when
right.
Lehman Brothers, like, you know, or like the Goldman Sachs or whatever, when the banks failed, they all were able to walk away with tens of billions, and people lost their houses and their homes.
and of course,
Thanks to Mnuchin.
Yes, no fault of their own. You have people who are homeless through no fault of their own, never missed a payment on their mortgage, but
of course, since all employee compensation is treated basically equally, when a company goes bankrupt, one of the first debts they're obliged to pay off is money that they owe to employees. So if your CEO is sitting there going, well, you guys owe me that $18 million check, someone else isn't getting paid that $18 million because that
Correct.
CEO is.
yeah. So it's just like it's frustrating when it's like there's an easy way to talk about taxes that doesn't have to talk because when people start going with the the alternative minimum and the capital gains and the pass through, like it starts to get complicated, and they purposely start talking these things, and the average voter doesn't know what that is because they're not a CEO of a conglomerate taking in tens of millions of dollars, and they're not using those taxes. So it's like, instead of putting it that way, put it as, okay, let's look at individual corporations that these taxes are going to benefit. Let's look at what they're not paying in taxes and how much they're using tax dollars for.
The problem there is that you can get bogged down in minutiae and how you calculate how much they're using, and how you you can get into just petty arguments about the details, and it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Show the basically the the disproportionate world we're in, where it's you have a company let's take Trump's companies. Trump is currently being sued in 3,500 different lawsuits.
The exact number, but
It's
yeah,
okay.
that's
So
something like that.
Now every lawsuit is in a court. That is state dollars. He does not pay. So, we don't know what he's paying in taxes. He's also now you know what I mean. So it's when you start looking at these individual we don't have to look at just the top companies that are going to benefit, the Googles and the Facebooks and the Shells and the Exxons, and show that they're not spending federal income, but they're using all this all the services and the commodities, and they're not paying their fair share.
I mean, I think there's a way you can kind of simplify that argument to make the same basic point without having to get as much into the minutiae. And that's, okay, think about, what do you have to lose if the police decide not to protect your property rights? Well, you have, what you have to lose is whatever assets you have.
Your property.
Yeah. So think about what your net worth is there. Now, think about a company that has $100 billion of assets. What do they have to lose? All of that. Which of them is receiving more benefit from the government services for protecting property? Well, I don't know about you, but in my case, that's right around $100 billion of difference.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, right about there. Yeah. So
Maybe a little more.
Where we really have to end with this one is just that these are all the points they're trying to make and all the things they would like to see go in. And as soon as they actually get this down on paper, we'll get to review a little more, and then they'll start negotiating with the Democratic side. And And who knows what happens? I mean,
who knows who's going to
maybe
get it?
Lindsey Graham steps up and says again, "I thought the smart people were gonna fix this one."
Yeah, we haven't covered that yet.
Yeah,
though.
we're gonna get to that wonderful quote from
that was
earlier.
amazing.
Oh my! So,
Yeah, but I mean, like, we also got to show that, like, we don't know who's going to get indicted from today until when they start having a plan and negotiating. So who knows if this even is going to go anything further than your notes that you printed out? Like, we don't know. Like, they might give up on this faster than Obamacare for this past week.
there you go. So now we are going to, well, honestly, just wait and see what they put down on paper on that one. But right now it looks unbelievably horrible. We are going to move on to the healthcare reform bill, which is dead again.
Right?
For
and
now.
I mean, at least for now, it's dead for this fiscal year. And that means they'd have to get it back through reconciliation in the House to try and do it for fiscal year 2018. And that just doesn't seem very
That's a
likely.
year away.
Technically, fiscal year 2018 starts in like a week.
No, but it's a calendar year for reconciliation.
Oh, you're right. That is true.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
we have
so-
like 3 months.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit before they get to try
they
that one
can't
again.
try this until August of next year.
Although, to be fair, given how badly the last couple attempts went, they might push that one off anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they don't know what's going to happen to them in the next couple of months or year.
So right now, joining us, Anna has joined us in studio.
Hey everybody, they went late recording, so I got to show up after doing my local politics thing again.
So here she is to join us on this fun stuff. So, with the dead health care bill here, specifically we're referring to Graham Cassidy.
What's fun about the this time it's deceasedness this time is that it happened. I know it's Thursday today, but I'm pretty sure this happened Tuesday.
Yes.
So Tuesday, and they also had a grand debate on CNN Monday night and it was Lindsey Graham, Bill Cassidy, and he debated Bernie Sanders and I forget the woman's name. It's Anna Gorgontrauf, Minnesota, I believe.
Yep.
And I can't pronounce her last name.
That's fine.
And I feel bad. So they they were trying to give all these jazz and by lying straight to children's faces about how great their bill was. And then the next day, Mitch McConnell was like, yeah, we're not going to do it anymore. It's not going to work out for us.
We also had this great interaction between Lindsey Graham and reporters, in which Lindsey Graham said a number of very interesting things, and some of them are especially interesting when you combine them with some of the other things he said. For example, when he said, nobody in our conference believes Obamacare works. It must be replaced, but until now, we didn't know how to do it. Well, in the same exact exchange with reporters, when a reporter asked him, you've been working to overhaul this for 7 years. Why is this so hard? He replied, well, I've been doing it for about a month. I thought everybody else knew what the hell they were talking about, but apparently not. So nobody in our conference believes Obamacare works. It must be repealed. But I thought everybody else knew what the hell they were talking about, and apparently not. So the people that don't know what the hell they're talking about don't believe Obamacare works, and you're going to keep running with that.
Well,
Yeah.
he did
Also,
add...
I like how he thought he could just overhaul a bill that took over a year and a half to become a bill in a month.
Yes.
Well, he didn't think he could do that. His exact quote there, he added, he had assumed, and I quote, these really smart people will figure it out. Those were his words.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham is the guy who shows up at the last minute during your group project and is like, so I guess I'm doing everything, huh, guys? Because you're all stupid at this. Oh, wait, well, I guess we're getting an F. Sorry, bye. He's the worst. He's a garbage pile, except when he says stuff I like, I guess.
I know that's.
He's still a garbage pile.
Yeah,
He is, but sometimes he'll be the only Republican who's saying something that's halfway reasonable, and I think he gets away with doing that because he then pulls this stupid. There's a conservation of stupid.
No, the reason why he doesn't get so much like chewed out is because he hates Ted Cruz so much, and it's the only saving grace.
I mean, to be fair, everything I've seen suggests that literally everyone hates Ted
I know,
Cruz.
but like Lindsey Graham just says it in such a Lindsey Graham way, which is like kind of also sad at the same time.
Yeah, but he has like cred when he says shit about Ted Cruz because like, oh, he's a Republican, he's in the leadership.
This is the guy that agrees with Ted Cruz on every issue except fuck Ted Cruz.
I know, and that's, I mean, I will 100% get behind those words all the time.
Yeah, no, on board with that part.
And he just says it the most. So like,
But
I
at
don't
this
know.
point, healthcare is currently dead. No repeal, no replace. So what is
Well,
that?
the
like
Healthcare isn't dead, just the bills to
So
ruin
yeah,
our
the bill to
healthcare.
replace it. Now we're at our next phase of the game.
where they're going to try and hurt it with the tax bill, where they're taking
or
away.
they're going to try to eliminate any acknowledgement of Obamacare existing still, but during open enrollment. And there's still that open litigation in the courts about the what is it, I forget whether it's called the CMR payments or something, the reimbursement payments of paying the insurance companies for the subsidies. So as long as that litigation is pending, it creates uncertainty in the markets because the courts can any day rule that
You're not getting those subsidies ever.
These payments are technically unconstitutional, so now you're no longer getting them, when they could just drop the case and just pay the fucking things.
And of course, because of that uncertainty, they're using that to jack up insurance premiums because they need to cover their potential losses in case they don't get
Yeah,
the
they
subsidies.
have to operate thinking that at any point a judge will take away their reimbursements.
That means that places like Florida are seeing, easily double-digit percentage
Massachusetts,
increases.
here in Massachusetts, because it's like a lot of people are getting subsidized plans because we're not making, a lot of people aren't making jack anymore. And so it's like those health companies need that guaranteed money to be able to afford the coverage.
And mind you, I'm someone that would love to see every one of those companies go out of business, but not, while we're trying to actually use them as a key part of our healthcare system. I want them to go away because they've been replaced
By something
not
better.
because they just stopped.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and the fact that it's like, it's a bullshit argument. It's and it's only out of spite of Obama, for putting it in place from the Republicans. And if they drop the suit, everything will stabilize.
It's literally they're complaining and they're yelling and screaming. That is destabilizing everything.
It's not even really destabilizing. It's just creating higher costs.
No, it's creating enough confusion in the market that they just don't know what to do.
Yeah,
so it's creating the higher costs. It's
is-
causing people not to join the exchanges. It's
That's actually that same package of reasons. It's the reason they were justifying leaving a bunch of the Obamacare markets. So people literally are not able to get insurance in some places because of that uncertainty.
And we still have 19 states that have not expanded Medicaid.
Of course.
So if those 19 states expand Medicaid, you will have more options, you will have more coverage, you'll have more plans, and will probably eventually get lower premiums because you would have more people paying into it.
So this is something else that we're going to wait and see what happens with the tax plan, because they're going to try and slide a few things through there during those negotiations, and we'll just have to see what happens there. But again, we got lucky again on this one, and 3 Republicans came out in opposition, enough to kill it. John McCain, Rand Paul, and Susan Collins.
Right after it died, Lisa Murkowski came out and said something to the effect of, "Yeah, I don't think I could have voted."
Well, my favorite part was that there was a joint statement put out by health insurance, hospitals, physicians, the cancer organizations.
I had a list of just all the organizations. It was
So they-
literally everyone involved in healthcare.
So they put out a joint statement, and it was in there, it was we represent the 1/6 of the economy. The entire 1/6 of the economy hates this plan. This is what this plan will do. This is how many people will get hurt. Do not do this plan. So it's you had the entire 1/6 of the economy saying, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
And medical organizations being like, this plan violates the Hippocratic Oath, and so no doctor can support it.
Yep.
Yeah. And even the lobbyists were like, yeah, no, this is not. Ugh, this won't do anything.
Don't put my name on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I want nothing to do with this.
America's
And then-
health insurance plan shit talked it.
Yeah, like so, and the only people that were for it was Lindsey Graham and Bill Cassidy.
There were a bunch of Republican donors that like it.
Yeah, about that. I'm sure Sheldon Adelson was on the side of
yeah.
Graham
yeah,
there.
he likes that one.
God, what is? I mean, isn't
So-
his time up yet?
It's close. It's close. He's gonna follow his friend Hefner out the door.
Don't you dare! I love that man.
That's okay. You're allowed to. He was a divisive character among kind of the activist scene in that he fought a lot for freedom of speech. He fought a lot for First Amendment rights. He fought a lot for women's freedoms. But then at the same time, he was also a huge creep. So like
I
you
don't know
have
what
to
you're
kind
talking
of
about. An old man surrounded by naked women. What's creepy about that?
Yeah.
getting the centerfold because you slept with him, things like that. You know, not really right for the workplace.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's like America right there.
Exactly.
Also, the Hollywood sign is
Thanks to him.
yeah,
Thanks
he
to him.
paid for it.
Yeah, they were selling the land out from under the sign to a
it was
builder of mansions.
Yeah, and like I guess
And
it
it
was
was
like it was
deteriorating,
yeah,
it was falling apart, and so they were going to sell the land to a group that were going to tear it down and build mansions on the land. And he showed up and bought it outright. Just here's all the money, thank you. You aren't taking the sign down, and paid for the repairs and everything. Yeah, so he's done some interesting stuff, sure. And I mean, you know,
He's got a fascinating life, and
there's a documentary on Amazon right now about him that will be interesting. I think I kind of want to watch it.
oh well.
Although he had a heavy hand in actually the production of it and the writing of it and the shooting of it, so it might be a little pro him compared to
Might
an
be a
honest
little
one.
tidied up.
But supposedly the director and everyone say he actually was really open to all the negative stuff, so we'll see. But let's move on to something else fun the last week. The Jones Act, which I'm sure a lot of people are hearing about for the first time.
I sure did.
Bit obscure.
So the Jones Act is also known as the Merchant Marine Act of 1920. It serves a very...
Oh, that act. Oh,
It
now,
serves a-
now it's jogging
Now
the
you
memory.
know.
Well, why didn't they just call it
Oh,
that? We
wow,
would have
yeah,
known
like we
immediately.
just-
It
say
serves
its common
some
name.
really unique kind of things here in this country. It's weird because you can look at who supports it and say, well, all the actual, dock workers and shipbuilders and all the unions that are representing the people all support it. So as someone kind of on the left who, agrees with unions 90% of the time, it seems, that sounds good. But then it's also very protectionist, and that's, when you read it, it goes both ways. And so what this act actually is intended to do is to keep a vibrant shipbuilding, ship launching, ship management, ship upkeep kind of industry running in America, and a group of trained people in this country who know how to build and maintain and operate ships. From the government side, it's specifically so we have wartime readiness if we ever have to ramp up shipbuilding and things like that when they initially put the act in place.
And that's like super important because the amount of time it takes to develop those skills and everything, you can't just like develop that at some point and then leave it idle for 20 years and like need it again and
No.
have it anywhere near prepared. No, you are starting over from scratch at that point.
So that makes complete sense. And then you have people like the rail operators all being for it because it gets the price of freight across the ocean up high enough that it doesn't affect the railways. And then you have countries like, or not countries, but territories like Puerto Rico who are both helped and hurt by it, and they kind of seem to be in opposition of it. But what we run into with the act itself is that it bars anyone with a any foreign built, foreign owned, foreign flagged, or predominantly foreign crewed vessels from carrying goods or passengers between two U.S. Territories or states. So you couldn't take a ship with a Norwegian flag with a Norwegian crew from New York to Florida carrying U.S. oil without any stops anywhere else. Just boom, right there, under this act.
You'd
This
pay
act stops
huge
that.
Tariffs.
Yeah, so it adds a bunch of tariffs, a bunch of fees, making it unbelievably impossible for them to do it. So what it also does, though, is it limits the amount of ships we have available to do specific things in times of disaster, like now. We need more ships available for relief down in Puerto Rico, and we don't have enough that are specifically built to do the type of relief that we need available right now, and some foreign flagged ships could easily be doing this work for us and are available, but because of the Jones Act, they weren't allowed. And they finally, as of today, have that waiver in place, so Puerto Rico can now, ignore the Jones Act for a little bit. But it's an interesting act because
They originally declined. They originally declined, but they did, when they declined, say we need to look at this a little harder. We're not saying for good, but give us a couple days. Even though they were able to waive it for Texas and Florida.
In fact,
very quickly, and they had already reviewed it
before Florida even got hit by the hurricane.
So they already knew what the Jones Act was, and
Correct.
Trump gave a statement before he waived it. It was yesterday, and his response was, well, a lot of the shipping industry isn't for this.
Well, he's right. A lot of the shipping industry isn't. For example, the father of Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao, James C. Chang Chao, is the founder of it's a New York-based shipping company called Foremost Group, but a lot of their ships are owned by subsidiaries that are based in other countries. For example, a subsidiary from the Marshall Islands which has ships flagged in Liberia and Hong Kong. And so
those ships can't ship between U.S. states.
Yes. But on the other hand, most of his shipping fleet is American flagged and totally can. And so he also has a very good reason to want to tell Trump, don't give out any exemptions.
So with the act in place, the building of a ship that meets all of the standards to be legit under the Jones Act is way more expensive. The manning of the ship is more expensive. The maintenance of the ship is more expensive. But the benefits far outweigh that if you look at the people who support the act.
But the waiver is not indefinite. Like there is a time.
No, it's a temporary waiver in times of disaster.
There's also talk about repealing it entirely, and John McCain has pushed that.
And that's a separate topic after. You know what I mean? But the fact that it's the idea of waiving the Jones Act in this particular situation was we need to get supplies there now, and they
we need to get trucks and truck drivers there because that's what they're missing.
Kayla, you know very well that what we do in this country is wait until there's a disaster and then change laws in ways that are horribly detrimental and claim it's temporary and then never ever repeal the temporary thing.
So I
when you have 3.5 million people without power and food and water, put the fucking temporary waiver on and then talk about the repeal while the waiver's there.
Right.
But they couldn't even do that, because Trump is so fucking full of himself, and he didn't even know that Puerto Rico was probably American citizens with U.S. with U.S. passports and part of America
now that he's
someone
finally
pointed
figured
it out
that
on the map.
But now he's figured that out, so the military's on the way. I mean, a little late.
And then that's what he was like. Oh, the ocean's huge.
Honestly, though, I'm not actually entirely sure that the Jones Act waiver was necessary. The problem was that, well, first of all, the military didn't get dispatched immediately to provide the support services, but also it just takes some time to mobilize supplies if they weren't already ready to. And I mean, now we have supplies in Puerto Rico piling up on the docks because they can't get them anywhere on the island.
3,000 containers already ready to just have a big rig back right up to it, lock on, and drive away, or sitting there at the port.
At the point that's the issue, I have to question whether really the problem is that we can't get shipping there.
Well, it's not shipping containers that are an issue. It's oil and gas.
Yeah,
which other countries are more than willing to drop off right now? I mean, Venezuela, just as a slap in the face, have said, we'll load a ship and have it there before you blink.
Them?
Exactly. But they do that just to mess with us. That's the reason that the stuff is sitting at
the docks. It's not because we ran out of truck drivers. They did.
No, they actually did run out of truck
drivers.
drivers.
They specifically don't have enough truck drivers to move the stuff around, and they don't have enough roads cleared to do it, and they don't have enough fuel there to drive the trucks to deliver it all. So
there wasn't enough preventative measures put in place
they weren't,
before
proactive about dealing with the
disaster.
So
what they really needed, honestly, was the military there earlier, not because they're the military, not because maybe they could have delivered supplies. No, what you need the military who gets sent in these instances for is not even necessarily the manpower. It's the knowledge of logistics. The logistical
that's exactly
nightmare
why we have a National
here.
Guard.
Yes, you need the logistical support, the people who know how to show up and go step by step through this process
have all the tools
as fast as
Like,
possible and have
if-
all the tools available to do so.
Yeah, if you
and the
come ac-
training
if-
to do
if
so.
you're on an island that's been wrecked by a hurricane and still has like periodic flooding issues, you want the people that have all the materials to assemble a bridge to cross a major river under fire.
Yeah.
Like that.
You want the Army Corps of
those are the
Engineers
people
saying,
that
we've
have
got
that.
this.
Yeah, like they should have deployed a National Guard unit to them.
Yep.
There should have been a whole bunch of like discussions and planning the week, like because they knew this was coming and it didn't because it's Puerto Rico.
We spent days before other hurricanes hitting the U.S. planning and preparing, and then when one was about to hit Puerto Rico, everyone was just like, whatever.
Yeah, because
If we're talking about what we should have, like letting Puerto Rico get rid of some of this insane debt they've been living under.
Oh no, that's the reason why they got the hurricane, according to Trump.
No, it's the reason that their infrastructure is for shit because they have just the worst plan right now for dealing with their debt. The way they got signed onto a bunch of this stuff, they are obligated to pay off the debt before they take care of things like their hospitals, let alone their roads.
Oh yeah.
So that's why the infrastructure in Puerto Rico was so vulnerable to this hurricane. We talked about this with Harvey.
We did this to them. Absolutely. America caused this this disaster, put them in the situation they're in 100%, and Trump made it very clear how shitty their debt was on Twitter. Was the first mention of Puerto Rico in his Twitter feed after 22 tweets about the NFL was Puerto Rico's debt very bad.
Of course, even on aside from our involvement in how they acquired their debt, there is the fact that they aren't a sovereign nation. They are under U.S. governance. They don't have any ability to participate effectively in U.S. affairs.
Didn't the Supreme Court deny them bankruptcy?
I believe.
I know they.
I didn't look
on
that
that
one
because
up.
I remember seeing something to that effect, but I don't remember enough details
they asked
to say.
to go. They asked to be.
Well, if our engineers were listening, they would let us know that one.
Yeah, they asked. I believe they went to Supreme Court or federal court for bankruptcy, and they were denied. And that's why they still and they were told, nope, you have to pay every single penny back.
So now I think we
also
explained
should we mention that Steve Mnuchin was part of the Wall Street that bankrupted.
Yes.
Yes,
There you
but
go.
let's. I think everyone should have at least a basic idea of what the Jones Act actually is now. And the main reason the U.S. government really wanted it was to keep our military preparedness in terms of shipbuilding and ship maintenance.
Yeah, and in fact,
I just want to keep saying that every time you say shipbuilding, I hear shit building.
a little different.
I don't know. It's a little shitty right now for what they're doing.
I don't know how much actual training and institutional knowledge you need for that. I think it's pretty
for shit building and ship maintenance.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
I feel like you need to have some good probiotics for shit maintenance, but that's just me. That's me.
Let's talk about the Facebook and Twitter abuse by the Russians with their troll farms to meddle in our elections, and really, what they're doing is a conquer by divide and conquer. They are pushing through advertising and through messaging and through fake accounts and personas online divisive racial messaging, divisive religious messaging, divisive nationalist and protectionist messaging. And it just actually came out via, let me get this here, via CNN, that one of the named operations for Facebook and Twitter messaging by the Russians was actually called internally Blacktivist. And CNN announced that 20 minutes ago, and that's what they've been doing. They have been building the divide, making sure that they make us weaker by making us angrier at each other, and then making sure that we elect Trump.
And I think this was mentioned in one of our early episodes, but there's a really influential book in Russia, Foundations of Geopolitics, about how Russia should address its geopolitical stance and boost its geopolitical position. And one of the big things it talks about is doing exactly that, preying on internal divides within a culture like that of the United States and amplifying them against each other so that they can be
I don't know.
weakened.
Why hasn't Facebook been fined for allowing foreign entities to buy political ads?
Excellent question.
Because they keep starting to like mark.
Because it's very hard for them to police that
But
specifically.
if they just gave up, so they now showed the government they gave up this information that they took money.
Correct, but in this instance, if you look at it properly, they are a victim of an organized conspiracy by which the Russians filtered money into U.S. Hands that could then pay for these things. So you as Facebook,
what they told
you as Facebook having to police that yourselves is not a thing that's not a world I want to live in where Facebook could have ever figured that out. If Facebook has enough information and enough of their own police force and some kind of international investigative arm that could have solved that, then I don't want to live in that world.
I think we already do, Greg.
No,
Well,
I do think Facebook
It took
does
them
have
a
enough.
long time to put this one together. It wasn't
took
real
them a
time.
long time to look.
Yeah, they didn't even look. They didn't even care. They took money, but the thing is, they knew they took money from people that weren't living in America.
Which they're allowed to do.
No, they're not. Not for politics. Not for campaigns. No foreign national is allowed to be involved in politics.
Okay, so one, we haven't actually seen the ads, and
yeah, they refuse to give them up.
they're working with Congress now, and Congress has seen some of them. But the ones that we have been told about are specifically not political in that they are not. Please vote for this candidate in this
but that's
district.
not-
They are.
But if they hit on
look, redneck. Look at this horrible black person. That's what the ads were. They were racist. They were
a lot of
divisional.
it racist, but they also touched upon about political issues. So
Correct.
they're
But-
not.
but that's different.
No, it's not. It's
yes,
still,
it is.
You cannot.
Yes, it is.
Foreign
It's-
money cannot influence our politics. That's a federal campaign violation.
Yes,
So,
and if you are not actually advertising anything for or against a campaign and you are just espousing a political opinion, that does not break campaign finance law because you are not interfering in any way directly with the campaign,
I don't
even
know
though
if the
you
federal
are.
federal election committee has gone that specific.
Right,
in
but they
details.
talked about this on MSNBC a couple days ago, and they
what
said
I'm-
basically if you're not saying if you pay for an ad as someone outside of the country and that ad says re-elect Lindsey Graham, well then that is illegal. If you pay for an ad saying that man in Ohio this should be happening and it's not, but you don't name anyone, you don't talk about an election, you don't do anything, that right now doesn't violate the law in a way where Facebook could get in any trouble.
It's similar to the protections that like clergy have had with free speech when it comes to politics, where they could espouse a opinion about political stances, but they couldn't expressly make any statements about a candidate or party without risking their
I
taxes.
personally think that any political ads, paid for political ads, should not be allowed in social media.
I think they shouldn't be a thing in the first place.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
it should run publicly funded like it does in other countries, like in England.
yeah, exactly. And it's just like the one thing that it gets me so irate is the fact that like Facebook's trying to act like they're doing such a grand gesture by helping America by being like, oh yeah, so we took a look and we found 6,000 ads. Funny,
3,000.
well, now we know that they found.
Yeah.
So it's like that number's gonna jump, but then it's like, oh, and it just happened that we took money from outside of the country. That's weird. Isn't that weird, guys? Like, you should just take a look at this. It's like, no, you should have looked where the fucking money was coming from in the first place. You know, so if
It was $100,000. They do that in a day. Like
No,
if they were looking at that kind of money across that spectrum, I mean,
I don't know how
you're
they're-
talking
I don't know how
another
payments
100
work,
employees?
But if they saw like if they were able to find it once they
right.
looked.
So now that they know it happened, they are working on building out a lot of internal tools to try and solve this problem.
yeah,
But
the
they
problems,
did not see it coming, and
well, they didn't want to look either.
well, no, but you don't see this coming up front. When it starts happening, maybe you notice it and maybe you start trying to figure out what to do.
Or maybe if they saw, because they could probably, there's probably ways to see how many political ads are on Facebook. They probably have that information.
Well, of course, because you categorize your stuff and their auto classifiers figure
and
things
I think
out.
during a campaign election, wouldn't
But
you want to see?
almost none of these were political. They were all religious and racist and nationalist. They weren't just saying something about a political stance. They were talking about the protesters. They were
they
talking
said that
about
there was a lot about gun rights, they said there was
Sure, but that's
a
I mean
lot of political
that's,
issues.
Yeah, political issues, but they're not talking about actual campaigns or actual candidates or anything like that.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is like Facebook knew that they were taking in a large amount of political ad money. And no, they knew because like there was
they knew they were taking in money, but $100,000 is nothing. That's pennies. That's not large.
No, that's money wise, but that generates how many ads?
Millions of impressions, I'm sure.
So, and they knew that they had a ton of political sponsored and influenced ads being like driven on Facebook during the entire time. Like at any point, Mark should have been like, hey, shouldn't we take a closer look at these ads to see what they're saying?
That would involve him being, insightful and
Instead, 2 weeks after the election, he sits there
and I'm not defending them either. I'm just saying, like, as someone who knows software, the classifications and all the other stuff, and the amount of money that's going through their ad platform. I mean, I know small businesses that burn through $10K a month in advertising on there.
Saying, I think
that $100K isn't a large number. It's
I don't
even
care
if they have
the money. I care about the fact that we had people that were outside of the country buying ads.
Right. And so now that it's well known, now that they understand it and they've done all the research it takes to really figure out the 470 accounts that were behind it.
I also think the federal campaign election should
they can start to work on actually classifying it. Oh, they probably are.
And I think they should get some type of punishment of some type. I really do. I
don't think you can do that.
Have you ever tried to
I don't think you can do that because one, you don't know that they knew it was foreign money.
I don't care.
It's easy to put money through other systems.
I'm not saying it's easy to say that, but the federal election campaign should be investigating, and I think they do.
But what you just said was that Facebook should be punished.
Yes.
And so if you're running a service that anyone can do online, and someone American with American money comes to you and offers to buy an ad, and it's political in nature, you not understanding that person is actually a front for a front company that's a front company that 50 down the line.
We don't know that's the case.
We know actually a bunch of that through the troll farms, and we...
No, we don't, because none of that information has come out yet. It's not.
Some of it has.
It's not public yet. I'm saying the federal election, like, there should be an investigation into whether or not they violated campaign laws, and I think they should be punished in a way. If
they violated campaign finance laws, they should be punished.
We don't know that they did, and I'm sure on some level they did in a way.
I'm a big fan of innocent until proven guilty. I'm also a big fan of if you get defrauded.
I think Facebook's a fucking piece of shit.
Absolutely.
And so no, I think they're guilty because they disproportionately
you can't just think someone's a piece of shit so they're guilty.
Yeah,
that's not how America works.
Because they disproportionately target activists already.
That isn't relevant. You either believe in innocent until proven guilty, or you don't.
Facebook's not a person. It's an online service.
Don't you dare attack Citizens United in my presence.
Oh.
I mean, wait, attack it all you want because it's horrible.
Yeah. So
can I just jump in real quick, Kayla? Because one of the big issues here is yes, whether or not they violated campaign finance law is an important thing, and we should look into it. Absolutely, there should be an investigation. I think Gregg may be right that, the way the law is written and the way the law has to be written, that there may not be anything actionable there. But if reporting things on Facebook for being hate speech trash actually worked, these ads would have been reported and removed. That's the thing. The moderation on Facebook is trash, and that's why we keep getting these echo effects.
That really depends on the amount of targeting they were doing, because you put it in the right crowd and you target the right users, and you might get one report, not 1,000. And they were using all of the targeting features. So they were targeting a crowd that would actually like the ads they were showing them.
Yes, and when a person likes an ad, you see that. So if my shitty racist cousin likes that ad, I see it and I go, that is offensive as fuck, and I report it.
So it could have had the network effect of more people seeing it and reporting it.
Exactly. Yeah. The broken moderation on Facebook is an issue.
It's partly to blame here. All right. Yeah, I can see that argument, definitely.
At the very least, there's definitely an argument to be made that Facebook is grossly negligent.
That's what I'm saying, and that's punishable. And I'm not saying that they there is a punishment that can be had, whether it is ordering them to like grossly reorganize their how they operate, how they take in
They
ads.
should come up with a way to make this more proactive. It shouldn't have, as Senator Mark Warner said, taken them 10 months. As he says, this is a good first step. I'm disappointed it's taken 10 months of raising the issue before they've become much more transparent. So they definitely need to come up with, I would think, some kind of either a punishment or a rule change that forces companies in this situation to be a little
And also,
more
we
upfront
should-
about
we
this
should
and a little more
prohibit any
proactive.
type of online campaign ad at all.
That's not going to help because,
That's
like
not
Greg
gonna work.
said, you know, the thing
Cord
that the
cutters, people are
Russians
moving online. If you take away all the people who aren't watching TV anymore, then the ads have to go somewhere for it.
Yeah,
And
but
so
political
they're
ads
not
shouldn't
gonna do that.
exist.
No, let's ignore like the you know whether or not people need to see political ads in general.
I don't think they do, but
at some
since
point,
they
everything is political. You can, because of the environment we're in right now, you can say, "I think Nazis are bad," and that's a political statement. Like,
Or climate change is a thing.
yeah, there's so much stuff that's tied into our politics, but it's also like core to our identity as people and Americans. In our different groups, your social justice warriors, your alt-right idiots, like all the different people there. Anything that you can think of that they believe in, that they want to see, that their values might lead them to going towards a political candidate or a company that's selling a service, can be thought of as political.
And moreover, anytime someone wants to, if you have a ban on that sort of speech, you have to be very careful you do something like that, because I want to see, people advertising about this issue I disagree with. I want to make that issue political now so that they can't run ads for it.
Well, I mean, that's like that. You're getting a little more complicated in that situation. Like, it's easy to say, like, you can't have campaign ads. It's easy to say you can't have policy issue ads, even though, like, sure, maybe half of those ads weren't actually considered those ads.
They weren't
But
policy ads. They were
But I'm saying
that racist ads.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you can start now making those moves, and whether or not the specific ads that like Facebook ran could have been considered a specific policy issue or a campaign issue, you were still taking those steps of saying, okay, let's try to like
let's make it a little harder.
Yeah, like let's like, and then also let's try to clean it up a little bit too. So it's like you can't have like candidates buying ads on Facebook and social media, on Twitter and stuff like that, and you can't push like a specific policy or ballot question.
So on Twitter, we know that they have said a couple hundred accounts were related to this, but there are outside groups like the German Marshall Fund who say they're tracking about 600 related to this, and that's just what they're tracking. There are probably a lot more than just those 600 accounts related to these troll farms.
And before we get too far off of this topic, I just want to make sure that we point something out here. Like, a lot of times when people bring up they're trying to divide us, everybody, like, don't fall for it. A lot of times that's directed at the groups that have legitimate grievances that, the outside force is amplifying.
They don't care if the grievance is legitimate or not. That's beside the point. They aren't just trying to fuck us over by like only amplifying the bad like the dumb stuff. They're amplifying anything.
Aaron Schwartz actually had a platform on Russia Today now and then because he was saying things that were critical of the U.S. government, and Russia doesn't care if your grievance is legitimate and can be resolved in a reasonable fashion. They just want to like sow discord as much as possible.
They don't even care if there's an actual disagreement. If they can make it look like there's one, that's good enough.
I really just don't want the takeaway anybody gets from this being like, all you black people, minorities, shut up and stop complaining because you're falling for it and you're letting the terrorists win. Like, let's not end up over in that pile of stupid. If we could.
All the people, anyone that might think, all these people that are protesting these topics that Russia pushed, clearly, they're falling for the attempts at dividing us. Well, we don't have data on this, but I would be very surprised if it didn't turn out that Russia was also pushing that message to get those people pissed off at the people that are basically their ideological
just another
allies.
divide.
Yeah,
Just another divide.
It's the same thing as far as they're
I mean,
concerned.
and also, like, it doesn't even have to be Russia. Like, there's just troll farms.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's like their whole job is just to create a divide.
Well,
and
no, their whole job is driving page views to fake news so they can make the ad money.
Yeah, and the number one fake news guy just died, coincidentally, in Chappaqua County.
There you go.
JJ Horner.
Indeed.
I gotta say, this new Cold War is a lot weirder than the old Cold War. I don't know
Yeah.
that I like it better.
I mean, I'm just trying to start the conspiracy that Sheriff Joe killed JJ Horner. Like, that's all I'm trying to do here.
That makes sense.
Because it's too coincidence. How does he get pardoned and then him die? I don't know.
So a few senators have called for Facebook to actually release the ads for public scrutiny so people can see what they were fed by the Russians and make their own
And also
decisions off of it.
And the scariest part, I think, too, out of the whole Facebook thing is, like, come to find out that, like, online ads or ads bought for solely online, it doesn't have the same requirements to like disclose as public ads, like commercials and like TV ads. What the fuck? How long have you had the internet? Like,
So it's way easier to get around those attempts at
so it's like, wait,
that.
how have we not like updated that, like the internet ads in like the last 17 years?
Almost none of the laws related to the internet have been updated since the 80s.
That's okay. None of the people writing the laws understand anything about the internet anyway.
Yeah, because the last time they understood what like society was in the 80s.
Look, even then, most of those people had trouble programming their VCRs, and a
So-
bunch of them probably still had Betamax.
Let's hope we end up with those ads made public so we can look at the ball and see what the actual attacks were.
But also one more thing and then we can move on. Now, it's been highly rumored that Zucky is dabbling in maybe running for presidential campaign or an office in 2018 or 2020. No, this is like, he's like, that's why he's like traveling the world and like meeting normal people. How funny would it be if like all of the ads, if he chooses to run for an office, was like anti-Zuckerberg on Facebook?
Sounds right.
like how, like,
I bet you the moderation would suddenly work.
Also,
No, actually, I think it's entirely possible he'd just be okay because this is win-win for him. They're spending so much money that I'm going to be even richer, or I win the election.
Yeah, either way, you're hooking him up.
Yeah, he wins that no matter
Yeah.
what.
I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, if the Russians wanted to take him out, he'd be gone already. But I just think that'd be like kind of like a sweet dessert if like all of a sudden like he chooses to run for office and like all of like the worst ads online are all happen to be directed at him or against him.
So,
Greg, I know you've got a lot of stuff here, but I would super love if I could have 5 minutes to talk about some of the local stuff.
Local hour with Anna. She talks local politics.
Thank you, Kayla.
It's local with Anna.
Real quick. If you've got local elections going on, they are starting to do things where they'll actually have folks show up and do debates for a local position, which is not a thing that every city has done historically, and definitely not one that everybody here is super familiar with. But it's super exciting, and you'll find the one person who shows up to the thing who is just a trash pile of a human being. And it's really great if you go with a couple of friends, because you can all look at each other and go, oh my God, did she literally just say how great it is that her kids don't describe their friends by race because they're so not racist that they don't see race?
Is that what you just listened to?
Yeah, well, fortunately, there was only one candidate for school committee who was that level of oblivious white lady, I guess is the nicest thing I can say.
So just white lady.
Oh God, she was staring bullets at me by the end of it. She was not happy with me.
So does she get a position on the school board now, or how does
She's
this work?
running unopposed. Like yeah.
So if she's running unopposed, that means she's got control of schools.
So the way it works with a school committee is you have a number of people. You know, it depends on the city how many you've got. I think Malden, we've got 8 or 9. I really know my stuff, guys. Very good at this. I've been doing this for a long time, 2 months or so.
Longer than the rest of us.
Right. So the school committee deals with things like, how do we make a budget with what the city has given us? What do we cut? What can we spend new money on? They can influence the overall trajectory of the school district, but the individual administrators and principals have some leeway on things. The superintendent obviously is very involved in things, but the school committee is more or less what the schools defer to as what the public wants. And it's by and large filled with busybody moms or self-important people who can't get themselves into city council yet. So let's start with the school committee.
What does this unopposed woman want to do?
So she's an incumbent, so she's already been on the school committee, and she really thinks that we don't need to do anything to improve the diversity among the teachers, because we just want the best candidate for the job.
Which is what white people say when
you confront them with the fact that you're not actually hiring a diverse workforce, and just talking all over herself. And then I did bring up the fact that our local charter school keeps getting welded in the national news by doing something stupid and racist. And she was very angry at me for being so divisive and calling out one school, because there's always going to be problems with diversity in schools. No, honey,
What?
Not every school gets in the national news for having racist policy. That's not a thing.
Checking girls' hair.
Yeah, specifically outlawing black hair is kind of like a thing.
Yeah, I would say that is an issue.
I'm sorry, not outlawing, just banning.
Right.
Schools
Can't
don't get to
things.
outlaw things. They would if they could. Anyway, sorry to chew up a little bit of your time here. I know we're running super duper late tonight, but local politics, it's where things start. Our good friend Nicole was up there, and I'm sorry, honey, I'm leaving you for her because she knows what LARPing is.
Indeed.
Anyway.
I married a LARPer.
You married a dork. I apologize.
It happened.
So how about, I don't know.
How about that
Yeah.
North Korea?
How about that North Korea?
How about Minister Ri Young-ho saying that Trump has declared war on North Korea?
Let's just go straight from local to international trash pile.
So
We keep kind of a theme going.
Yeah. Something's going to be on fire.
Part of me was a little excited to see this AP notification on my phone because I thought it was the start of nuclear war. And I was like, yes, just in time for my birthday. I was like, you did it, Kayla. It started. You made it. You aren't going to see 30. Good for you. And
Only one candle on this birthday cake.
yep. So I was like, I knew it. All my dreams are coming true.
I'm less hyped on the idea of nuclear war. I'm just
That's
you know.
It's because you're over 30, so life gets really dark after that.
Wouldn't that mean he'd be more for nuclear war?
I'm not
I think you
following
had that
one.
backwards.
I don't know. Well, because you've already made it, so you gotta ruin it for the rest of us, because that's what
Right.
what baby boomers do.
Right, that is
He's
what
not
they
a
do.
boomer. You take that back.
He's
I'm
got
like 20 years younger than the boomers.
yeah, but your gray hair tells me otherwise. I don't know.
Ah, all right. Damn youngins. So Trump claimed that North Korea's leadership won't be around much longer, and that, of course, the North Koreans have taken to mean that Trump has declared war, which, of course, he hasn't, as declaring war is a very specific thing that has not been done yet.
That,
Well,
saying,
no,
getting
that's
on the-
not fair.
That's
See,
not fair.
No, because technically we're still at war with Korea.
Correct. I mean, we
There's
haven't.
an armistice
But also,
Yeah.
that has temporarily ceased the confrontation.
But,
But there is a war.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like him on the floor of the UN saying the U.S. will completely destroy North Korea is more of a declaration than this sentence.
Yeah.
So it's just it's funny that they didn't choose his UN speech in front of the world as a declaration, because I definitely threatened to destroy a country in front of everybody in the world.
I guess at that point, really, you could. I'm not going to criticize you too much for you had your pick of statements and you chose one. Sure, maybe it wasn't the best choice for that, but you were handed a bunch of options, all of which were technically valid. Oh,
So this morning, North Korea called Trump an old lunatic.
I preferred dotard.
Yes,
That
and
was the
they
correct
said that
one.
he was exploiting Otto Warmbier's death, accusing him of luring and pushing Warmbier to break NK laws, as if he had any idea who Otto was before any of this.
Or after any of this.
Yeah. I think he only remembers he exists when the North Koreans actually bring him up.
at this point, I just really enjoy seeing statements coming out of North Korea because like they're very poignant and like articulate.
Yeah, it's weird.
And like I agree with a lot of it. So
you just tell me you don't agree with their treatment of their people, or
I mean, like, no, I'm not gonna go into La La Land here, but like it's just really funny to read these statements.
And see, like,
where they're calling Trump a lunatic.
Yeah,
like, and
like,
North Korea is getting this right.
Yeah, like it's just like
ooh.
I read this and I'm like, okay, why does this sound like something the U.S. used to once say, but they don't anymore? And it sounds like, and now we become North Korea, or like what we thought North Korea sounded like. Yeah, it's just I enjoy it in a very scary, frightening way, and I also. When I first read Dotard, I read it as Dotard, and I honestly thought they mashed up Donald and Retard. I really did.
Kayla.
No, I
You
did,
didn't know that?
and I thought that was like,
Dotard is a word?
and like for like a split second, I was like, fucking Kim Jong Un is a goddamn genius. That is a giant. That is a slight, huge burn, and I love it. That's some shade right there. And then I realized it was like a real word, and I was like, I need a dictionary. And that's where I was at with that.
So that is that. So we did not declare war on a country that we are technically already at war with.
Yeah, because we've already declared it.
We've got an
kinda
armistice
redundant
right
then.
there.
Yeah,
So
like we don't need to declare something we're already doing.
yeah, I mean, at this point, it's more of a verbal war. But they do keep blowing things up over the water.
That is true.
Yeah, but they've been blowing things up over the water for like a long time. Like I'm
They're
still
doing more
They're
of
just
it.
getting closer to us.
I'm just still convinced that like Kim Jong Un
Not close enough, but
is
closer.
like if we get him beach body ready, he would stop being so pissed off at the ocean. Is like my like
I don't know. If you look at on Reddit today, someone posted a picture where they actually did the standard, like Glamour magazine photoshopping of him, where they took off a few pounds in a few years and made him just a little skinnier, but you can still see the face. It's really him. And man, if he just lost like 60 pounds, I would actually be scared of him. That look, oh wow, he looks like menacing.
Like I think he's
Yeah,
just
get him like one of the Hollywood personal trainers that they use when they're bulking up for like a very like physical role. And like 6 months from now, everyone will be terrified.
or they'd be aroused. We don't know.
We don't
We could be
know.
both.
We don't.
Yeah, you can be both at once.
Be both. You can be both. That leads down a horrible path. So let's move on to something
that's
else.
a weird fan fiction.
Let's
I don't want to
not
write.
transition on that one. All right, so I say we now have a new travel ban. We do have a new travel ban. This one adds a couple countries, removes a country.
You can tell it's not racist because there are 2 countries that aren't Muslim majority.
Indeed. So in this one, Sudan was removed, but Chad was added.
But my favorite part is finding out why Sudan was removed.
Let the audience know.
Well, like we have a travel ban, and it's a great travel ban, and so we're gonna
Big league.
sometimes we take countries off, we'll add countries. We just want to make sure there's a great travel ban in place. So I'll see you in Indiana. That was Trump's quote.
That's the reason that
That's like
happened.
literally his actual reasoning.
Sorry, I think I just had a stroke. Can you say that again?
So yeah, it was posted. The transcript was posted. A journalist asked Trump, said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." He goes, "Why is Sudan off the list?" He responded with, "Well, we have a travel ban, and sometimes we take countries off, and sometimes we add countries on. We just want to make sure it's the greatest travel ban we have." And then the journalist said, "Yeah, but why is Sudan now? What did Sudan do right to get off the list?" And he said, "Well, we're making a travel ban, and I'll see you in Indiana." And that was the end of his explanation.
That was his response to that. So Sudan off, Chad on, and adding Chad is kind of troubling, as Chad is one of the few countries in that region that's really working with the U.S. to stabilize the region. They've been working they've been working against Boko Haram on multiple fronts, on multiple of their borders. They've been really
This is just an unfortunate case of
really
having
helpful.
the shitty white guy name, and
Yeah,
no
yeah,
one
exactly.
and no one
I
likes
just-
a Chad.
Well, I just assumed that was actually, Trump heard, oh, there's Chad. Well, fuck that guy.
Yeah, so I really think that that's the case where it's like someone was like, no one likes a Chad.
Okay,
So-
look,
Get 'em off.
shitty white guys need to pick a different name.
So I'm not. I don't know that. See that one's a little too new. I think if you had gone with like some '80s meme,
Well,
maybe it would have
I
applied
just
with Trump.
assume he's had that tweeted at him many times.
Oh,
by his
he's definitely a
supporters.
Chad.
Yeah.
Or at least his supporters spend so much time talking about Chads. There's no way it hasn't come up in his
like I'm
presence.
sure he's been told a lot. Fuck Chad.
Yeah.
Or fuck you, Chad.
So-
and so he probably took that as you're right. Fuck Chad. And,
so
now-
North Korea and Venezuela were added to the list, and of course we understand that. I mean, North Korea was obvious.
Well, I mean, there's so many people just coming without visas from North Korea into the United States.
It's an epidemic.
And they're stealing a lot of our jobs. And they're
right now the amount of money that the average person makes there really affords them the amount of money it takes to travel to America. So they're just flooding our borders, obviously.
I mean, no, they are infiltrating.
They're
our
simultaneously
communities.
they're simultaneously taking our jobs and using up all the government assistance.
Oh, they're getting all the food stamps. And like they're really hurting the American citizen, those North Koreans.
And not just that, but when you have, an insular hostile country that wants basically nothing to do with the outside world, and you're in a ideological war with them where you really like their current regime to go away and be replaced by something better, the best way to sell your message to the people out of that country is to tell them they're not allowed to leave and come to your country.
Exactly. It's really working.
So the Supreme Court was set to hear arguments against the second travel ban, the one that included the Sudan. But now that this new one has been released, they have canceled the scheduled oral arguments for that one, and they're going to have to reschedule, I guess.
Not just reschedule. They won't reschedule until new briefs are filed arguing why this travel ban is the same as the old travel ban. And if they can't, then they're just going to drop the whole issue entirely, but which doesn't solve or answer the question of, does the president have executive authority to make such a discriminatory travel ban that clearly violates our laws?
Right. So we need, again, Hawaii and a few other people to step up and file suit and bring this back to the Supreme Court.
And come up with a good way of arguing that this ban is materially the same ban, which is...
I believe the ACLU had filed an amicus brief.
I think so.
Um,
And I expect that we will see some interesting arguments attempting to make that case. And I mean, it's obviously, to my mind, the same ban with a few minor details changed to make it.
Well,
legally
that, and you
palatable.
also have Trump, who tweeted a few different times, we need a stronger travel ban, and we need to use we need to stop being politically correct, or or we can't have a he basically insinuated that I want to make a flat out Muslim ban.
Yes, he plainly stated that on occasion, in fact.
Well, it was on his website the day, while it was still being fought in court. But just recently, he tweeted saying that I want a stronger travel ban, but I can't because it's not politically correct. And it's like, okay, you're this is so evident that you're trying to be a fucking racist white nationalist that you are.
The only problem is that, unlike in the previous cases, where the way he phrased it specifically implied that he was talking about what the actual intent of the already proposed one was. In this case, he was saying, "Oh, this is what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do that, so I did a different thing." And it's a little fuzzier in terms of the legality, simply because he wasn't specifically speaking to his state of mind in terms of the one that he did. It can still be, you can make the argument that it was indicative, but it's not as clear cut.
Yeah, and because we have Gorsuch on the bench,
No, I don't even think that he's sure, he's shitty and awful and part of the problem, but I don't even think he's the one that I would cite there.
Clarence Thomas, I'll never have any hope for.
Well, with Gorsuch now, we have him giving a wonderful talk at an event happening at Trump's own hotel, where Trump will make lots of money off of a sitting Supreme Court justice.
Okay, so hypothetically, right?
Giving a talk at his hotel that hundreds and hundreds of people go to and stay at the hotel.
Right. So, okay, hypothetically, let's say in our perfect world, we get vindicated, indictments happen, Trump gets impeached, we find out they colluded, everything's we get, Democrats win in 2018. We get a president back. How does a Supreme Court impeachment happen?
It doesn't. There's no.
No, there's a way. I believe once a Supreme Court justice has been removed, like in the 1800s.
Yeah, we have. I process for impeachment for the Supreme Court. I know we've removed federal judges before through impeachment.
They can't be impeached. But I'm just thinking, like, let's say hypothetically everything falls into place and like all of our wildest creations come true and like they did 100% collude with Russia. So like, and like obviously it was a stolen seat. Is like, what would the process be for an impeachment? Because like Gorsuch,
process would be it won't happen.
I
and
know,
it won't
but that's
happen.
what I'm saying hypothetically.
No,
this is my fan fiction.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is it won't happen because if the Democrats were to do that, it would set precedent that the Democrats can take away a Republican. And so the Republicans will say 10 years from now, but you did it to us when they try and go after a Democrat. You don't want to set any of those types of precedents.
There is a way that it, and the legality here is very fuzzy because nothing like it has ever been tried. But in principle, if it was ruled by the courts that the election itself was invalid for some reason, then they could say that the appointment of the justice
That's
was
kind of
invalid in the first
what
place.
that's what I'm kind of getting at.
But that is, as far as I know, so far from anything that's ever been tried in U.S. courts.
I know,
that
but
I
like,
have no idea.
She's just
what it
wishing.
is.
She's
I'm
just
putting
wishing.
something
So-
on my dream board.
So if I can just jump in with, what the internet tells me. We did impeach one Supreme Court justice. He was not removed from office.
Well, yeah, because
But he could have been.
But impeachments are very hard. So
This was in, I think, 1800?
yeah, no, I know it's possible to impeach. It's like it's just never been, just like a president has never been successfully impeached.
They've been impeached, just not removed from office.
Yeah, those
Well,
are
they've
different
never
things.
been convicted.
So the
But
Senate.
But
impeachment
impeachment
is
isn't
before
the conviction.
Yeah.
Impeachment doesn't remove anyone. It just starts another process.
The Senate voted to acquit Chase was the Supreme Court justice here. Acquit Chase on all accounts, and he served on the Supreme Court until his death in 1811. So that's the closest that history has to anything like your pipe dream.
Yeah,
Well, no, and then
doesn't provide a
John
clear
Roberts
path.
actually was the second justice that there was starts of talks because of the whole Citizens United
Oh, yeah.
case. But I mean, I'm just thinking like hypothetically, the election becomes invalid because we find out there was 100% Russian collusion. We're going. I know I'm going into liberal conspiracy land, but you gotta have dreams, and I would love for Gorsuch to be removed as well.
It would be nice.
We could start a campaign saying that any, patriotic person who knew they got their seat wrongfully should not hold on to that seat and should actually retire themselves.
Yeah, if he actually cared about the Constitution.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I still don't see that
It
being
does not seem a likely path.
a thing. Other interesting news before we wrap up tonight is the Saudi Arabians, they are now allowing women drivers. It won't take effect until June of 2018, but it is finally a thing. And so
while.
it has taken them a
I just
long
like
time
how
to
Saudi
decide
Arabia
to do
is
this.
taking a step forward as like our country is taking
Right?
all the steps back.
Ow. Ow.
So one of the interesting things is, this the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is behind this push, and some interesting statements have come out, about things he said, including that it took a little longer to get this done because there are 800,000 men employed in the country that their sole job is driving women around who aren't allowed to drive.
Those aren't even. Those are all like people from out of the country. They
Yeah,
come to
and
work
so-
there doing that.
Yeah, so this would create a really strange situation for them where they had 800,000 immigrant employees who are now suddenly without a job because of this. So that's part of the reason the effect is going to happen
Well, not
next
all
summer.
Of them. I mean, some women might not want to drive because I know.
Sure, and
just
some
like,
might not actually be qualified to drive. I mean, we have
Yeah.
people in this we have men in this country who do not drive because they are definitely not qualified.
And we
so
have people that
sure.
never learned to drive. So
Absolutely. So not all of them. They can migrate into other jobs that are just straight taxi services that aren't specific to that. But it is one of the more interesting things when you think about giving women the right to drive in this country. Learning the steps they had to think through in order to possibly do this, it's always interesting seeing the logistics behind it. And for them, it was, well, we control the religion here, so we can get past that if we want. But what do we do with these 800,000 people? And
having to retrain police so they know how to interact with women now.
Yeah. Because again, the interactions with women and men who aren't their husband or family members, direct family members, is a little interesting over there.
Well, can they still leave the house without their husband? Or
Saudi Arabia doesn't have a ban on women leaving the house without their husband.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
What you do have to understand is that every woman in Saudi Arabia has a male guardian who's pretty much, legally in charge of all of her stuff. For a long time, you couldn't actually undergo surgery if you were a woman without your male guardian's permission. Like, they had to be the ones to sign the consent forms for you. So some of the changes that have been happening recently are getting rid of that there, so women can actually get medical care if, whoever, the man is in their life isn't, in the room. They've also made it so that women can apply for government services without their male guardian's approval.
And then enroll in college
But
without the guardian's approval now?
well, that's a lot of movement. We're still, at a
We're
point.
still a ways behind there, but it is very interesting movement. One of the things that people don't understand about Saudi Arabia is that they'll look at the fact that women aren't allowed to drive and they'll think instantly, well, what are the thousands of other things women aren't allowed to do? But actually, surprisingly, in that country, for what we think of it, they are allowed to do a lot. There are a lot of women doctors, professors, and all the very educated positions are just filled with women, but they still have to live under this regime where there are all these weird restrictions that kind of don't mesh well with them having such big, careers.
It's very segregated.
Yeah.
You'd have recently, I think this past month was the first time they allowed women into a sports stadium for an event they were holding at an actual game, and they had to have the women in a family section and the single men not be in that section. There's still a lot of cultural movement that needs to happen if Saudi Arabia is gonna, catch up.
Can't wait for the first Saudi Arabian woman in a pantsuit president.
Well, they
gonna happen first
definitely
before
aren't
America.
allowed to do the pantsuit. They still have to wear the abaya,
Yes.
the cloak.
Actually, no.
Yes.
You could wear your pantsuit under your abaya, and in a lot of places you can wear the abaya open so they can see the pantsuit.
Right.
You just got sort of like a fancy cloak over it.
One of the interesting underground things there in Saudi Arabia is clubs that are hiding under various other establishments where the women will go in like they're going to get their hair done, and then they will go into the back and then into the bathroom and then through the false wall that leads to the basement, where they then take off the abaya and are wearing jeans and T-shirts and smoking and listening to rock music with all the other girls.
So they got speakeasies for women.
They do.
Basically.
They do.
That's great. I want to go to one.
And from what I read, I've read a couple different tellings of kind of these from people inside, is that if the police have to go to this thing, then they're going to deal with it and deal with it harshly because it breaks a lot of laws. But if there isn't a very specific reason where they've had to show up, they kind of are letting it be. And from what I read out there, it was specifically because they don't want the women getting angry when that gets taken away. They just don't want to deal with it, so they're kind of allowing it to happen, but only if they don't have to see
no
it.
fury as a woman's wrath.
It's a really interesting setup with this new crown prince. I mean, it seems like he's going to keep going down this path and do more. And the way his words, the way he's talking about it. So
if I remember correctly, just a few years ago, he was saying he wasn't sure about this whole women driving thing. So the fact that he has come around to that is kind of interesting.
I wonder if he's going blind and the only other person in his life is a woman.
He's pretty young.
It doesn't matter. You can have a genetic.
He could, but
yeah. I mean,
No,
like,
he's
we'll see
generally
what else he
forward.
does. I mean,
I'm just saying, like, a drastic change causing, like, his inability to drive might have been a driving factor, is all I'm saying.
well, I mean, the crown prince probably doesn't spend a whole lot of time driving unless he feels like it.
he might be worth way too much money for that.
The local women's rights activists, they are working on the guardianship thing next. That is the next hurdle to overcome.
So we will see just how much more ground they make there, but it's very interesting. I think at this point, the only thing I would like to throw out there before we end this one is that Ron Perlman has decided to run for president in 2020. And I gotta say, anyone who in the Reddit Amma thread for president says motherfucker for 2020 might have my vote.
Sounds like a great slogan.
Right?
He was one of a lot of people who in 2016, as a celebrity said, I'll run, like all kinds of crazy people. But
Motherfucker 2020, let's do it.
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling it.
For a lot of people who don't know Ron Perlman, I mean, one, are you under a rock or something? But he is big time on shows like Sons of Anarchy. He's been in a ton of movies, multiple movies where he starred alongside
He's
Sean
a baller
Connery.
on Twitter.
He is amazing on Twitter. But I will tell you,
You've probably heard him say, war never changes.
beyond all of that, and beyond the fact that he is a celebrity that might run and all these other fun things, there is a statement from him that he made on Reddit yesterday to someone who asked him if he was actually going to run and why. And he said this, quote, "First of all, we need to redesign our exceptionalism, becoming an example for the world of generosity and humanitarianism. Second of all, we need to act like a country that has been blessed with great bounty and give a leg up to anyone who wants or needs assistance in living the American dream. And thirdly, we need to live up to the aspirations of the founding fathers who used language like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and all men are created equal regardless of color, creed, nationality, or background. There are many more things I'd like to say, but more importantly, I'd like to live long enough to implement these things and more. The word I was looking for earlier was called stewardship. And if we blow that, there is nothing else." I really like the sentiment of that statement, and I like the basis for a campaign around that. Of course, that would need to quickly become actual stances on issues. But if the stances are based off of that as a starting point, I'm pretty positive I would be supporting them.
I'd definitely be very skeptical about supporting Ron Perlman, not because he doesn't seem like a good guy or anything, simply because it is very, as we've seen highlighted by Donald Trump as president, it is very important for the president to understand their office and the structure of government and all of that.
I agree entirely.
Now, if
we're gonna get another celebrity,
right.
I mean, we've been acing the celebrity presidents in America. Right. We're bat 1,000.
Right. But no, if a presidential candidate came out and said, hey, I feel like it's really easy to get distracted and listen to the wrong people in Washington. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to have Ron Perlman standing next to me, reminding me of this shit every single day. I'd be like, well, clearly this is okay. Fair enough. I'm on board with that.
I think there's a key difference between actors who want to be president and reality show stars who might currently be president on a technicality.
Sure, there's a difference. I just think that the things that are really needed to be an effective president require either a background in government itself or at least in the study of government.
Some civics education would help.
I would feel better with an actor because they are used to listening to somebody else telling them what they are supposed to be doing right now.
I mean, we had Ronald Reagan already.
So let's go for Mark Cuban and Ron Perlman 2020.
Yeah, fuck that. No, no.
These are the types of celebrities who might be running.
I'll take a Cuban cigar and Ron Perlman.
Well, shout out at the end here to Mark Cuban for loaning his team plane to JJ Barea, the Dallas Mavericks player, to fly supplies down to Puerto Rico. Good on him. All right, so let's end it here. Thanks for staying with us for this entire episode. A long one, but I think we got some good stuff out there, and listen to all of our wonderful social media stuff after I finish talking here. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush, executive produced by co-host Eric Gowrays, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Jeffrey, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie LoCicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.